button. Oh, the button seems to have worked. Hey, hello, everybody. um, I guess tonight is going to be an interesting one because this is probably one of the latest live streams that I've done. But that's okay because it's actually late in the afternoon for you, right, Gil?
Yeah, 4 o'clock, which is what's that, 1600 hours on a Friday afternoon, knock-off time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're living in the future. Is the future any different than the past?
No, not really. I think we just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Whatever I do today, you'll do tomorrow.
It's Groundhog Day.
Yep.
We got some people coming in. Let me make sure we acknowledge there's going to be some late night people tonight, especially everybody in the East Coast, because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning in the East Coast, 1 or 2. All right. So first in here was Fish Nerds. Marcos, thanks for being here. Aquarium Delirium Mal, he's joining us. He's just having his first what is it? Tea? Is he a tea drinker or is he a coffee drinker?
He'll be having a beer. Be
then with Jeff said he might pass out. Christine from Sweet Acre Koi Farms is also here. Sunfish for Fish. Thanks for joining us today. Fathom Aquatics, Alex, thank you so much. Peces y más, David, gracias por estar aquí. Oh, he's drinking coffee. I thought the Brits didn't drink coffee. I thought they were all about tea.
No, tea or warm beer.
We got AH Aquatics. Thanks for joining here. Don, thank you. Yeah, for I think AH, Dom and Don and Mel. It's early in the morning down there where they're at, or earlier in the morning. They're also in the future, I believe.
I think so. I think they're 10 hours behind me, roughly, I think.
Yeah, I think you and I are like 17-hour difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I always get Jeff Pelham to work it out for me. He's my world clock. He knows what time it is everywhere.
Jeff is Jeff is here. He must have ended his live stream. Shirley, thank you for coming over. Lance, wow, you guys are night owls. So late at night on a weeknight for most of you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely past my bedtime.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it would be.
What?
If I was where you are, it would be.
What time do you normally go to bed? Oh, okay. I was going to say at 4 o'clock. You're going to bed at 4 o'clock?
Normally just going to work now.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you guys are, for those of you that are not aware, this is Gil from, what's your channel name, Gil? Gil's Aquatics?
Fish Room.
No.
Fish Room,
yeah.
Yep.
And, I came across Gil maybe almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yep. And I came across him because we were both trying out BCB baskets. Which is something that I kind of wanted to talk about. That's one of the real reasons why I wanted to have Gil on, because he's kind of played with some of the same filtration system that I've kind of looked into. And I know I recently did a video talking about it, and to really do a justice to a type of filtration, you can't do an honest review with only a couple of months under the belt. You really have to run that system for quite some time to really see if what they're saying is true or not. At least that's been my experience. I don't know, what's your take on that, Gil?
Yeah, no, especially this one, because it takes a long time to get established, and then if you think it's going, whether it'll get overloaded or whether it'll crash. Like the main reason I was worried about using the clays, if it ended up like charcoal, activated carbon, whereas it'll absorb everything, but then when it's full, it'll release it again. That was my main concern, but fortunately, it hasn't happened. it's been going well over 2 years now. It'd have to be my baskets, and everything's
No.
still live in there.
Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I know. Like I was saying, I know the comment that I got from you was on. I was working on putting together the BCB baskets, the biokinesis. What do they call it? Biokinesis baskets.
Clarification basket. Clarification.
Oh, yeah, clarification. And obviously, this is coming from what Kevin Novak was talking about. For those of you that are not aware, he has a channel where he talks about using plenums as filtration, and he talks about these clarification, the BCB baskets. And I thought it was a pretty interesting type of filtration. The one that really interested me the most was when he was talking about plenums, and the reason is because back in the day when I started in the hobby, undergravel filters were kind of the norm for filter systems.
Mhm.
And when I went away, they didn't come back probably like 20 years, almost 25 years after the fact. And all of a sudden, undergravel filters are kind of like the no. They're the boogeyman. Everybody was talking bad about them, and that's like old school mentality, and you should never use one. But to me, as a person that was using them in the past, I thought they worked great. Water clarification with an undergravel filter, I don't think there's anything that really competes with it.
No, well,
when
my
you're
tanks
using
with it
an
are
undergravel.
they're the cleanest tanks I've got. They're only small ones, obviously,
So
but
I couldn't.
anything with an underground filter is cleaner than anything.
And I couldn't understand what the hate was for that type of filtration, especially because it was kind of like the go-to filtration back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so that was kind of interesting. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they found something out that I wasn't aware of, and now it's kind of become like the boogeyman. It's you don't want to do that. Well, then here comes along Kevin Novak, and he starts talking about building plenums and using undergravel filters again. And what related to me, or what I identify with a lot of what he was saying, was because it's stuff that I remember experiencing when I had undergravel filters, that a lot of the stuff that he was saying made a lot of sense to me. And kind of made me want to go down that road and give it a try and try out that type of filter system and stuff like that. But I didn't know too many people that were doing that. I didn't know how many people were actually following, Kevin Novak. I know not a lot of the people in I guess, what you would call fish fam. It wasn't very prevalent there. You didn't hear a lot of the bigger channels talk about them, and the few that did were always, were naysayers. They were saying, "Oh, that stuff is not going to work. It's ridiculous. This and this and that," which I always found very interesting, because by setting it up and watching it, progress, I didn't see a lot of the stuff that a lot of people were talking negative about it. But on the other hand, I didn't see the great wonders either that were promised with it. If I'm being honest, it seemed like it was like the old gravel filter of old. It wasn't this revelation discovery to me. But I know you were doing the same thing, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on, is because I know you have personal experience with them. So if you don't mind telling me a little bit about what you took away from it, or what made you even go into trying them out.
Yeah, well, first off, like you, I think I'd heard the term, and I Googled it up and watched a few of Kevin Novak's videos, and I thought, oh, this guy's promising the world, but he's probably going to just deliver an atlas. I thought, this is way too good to be true, so I tried it. But I think with the plenum, there's a difference between a plenum, what he calls a slow-moving plenum, and an undergravel filter. So the undergravel filter, you want to pull as much water to filter the water. Whereas a slow-moving plenum, you want the filter to be very slow. You want the water to take a long time, and you have a deeper substrate. And the idea is that the top levels of the substrate have access to the oxygen in the water column, and then as it works its way down, the oxygen gets used by your aerobic bacteria, which is your beneficial bacteria, which goes, ammonia, nitrates. And the nitrate molecule is, as we know, NO3. Now that O3 means there's 3 parts oxygen, 1 part nitrogen. And the idea is, as it gets right down the bottom of that plenum, all the oxygen out of the water column has been used, and the only available oxygen to bacteria is on the nitrogen molecule. So there's bacteria that'll use the nitrogen and change NO2 into N, which is nitrogen gas, essentially. So that's the difference. It works like a bog filter on a pond. You ever heard of they use the bog filter where you go through big rocks, small rocks, small rocks, small rocks, and the water moves very, very slowly. It's the exact same principle. Whereas a BCB basket is same, it's a similar principle, but it works a completely different way. So the idea of the BCB basket is you use like your kitty litter or oilsorb or something, and it's a clay that has a certain crystalline structure. And what that's meant to do, it works like it's a negative charge. If you get a magnet and hold the negative pole up, and the ammonia is positively charged. So the clay attracts that ammonia and then holds it. And so the way koi farmers forever and a day have been using BCB baskets is they do that, and they have plants growing in it in their ponds. So that plant will use the ammonia. So the idea of the BCB is to remove the ammonia from the water so you don't get nitrates. And then so as it gets, and it's the same thing as the plenum, as it gets drawn in further and further and further into the basket, we lose all the oxygen from the water column, and then end up with bacteria taking taking the oxygen off the nitrate molecule, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of understood from it. Like I said, I tried the BCB baskets on an aquarium that came back to bite me in the butt. Because what I did with that aquarium, I did a dirt it, or use soil for the base, and then capped it off. Well, that was working fine when I had some tetras in there and I had some angelfish. The problem was that eventually I added some electric blue acaras, and I made the mistake of thinking that I was going to outsmart the fish, right? I'm much smarter than the fish. So to prevent them from digging into the substrate, I'm going to lay some round, flat stones to give them a surface so they can nest on that and lay their eggs. And of course, they did everything but that, and they started digging up the substrate. When they did that, obviously they released all that soil into the water column. And what happens when you have an excess of nitrates? You're going to have all sorts of algae issues.
Yeah.
So that was when I decided I was going to try that BCB basket, especially for black beard algae, because that's what Novak was claiming that it would help eliminate some of that. And that's kind of like one of the most stubborn kind of algae to try to really get rid of. The hardest one that I found so far.
Yep.
So I decided I was going to do that and tried it out. And the thing is, what I was finding out is that a lot of people were getting upset or saying that it was, snake oil promises, but they weren't giving it the time. Both of these setups are systems that you got to run for several months before you really start
minimum.
Notice
minimum.
Yeah, you got to run it a year or more. If you're able to do that, it's even better, because by that time it's kind of established itself, and that's when you're really going to start seeing the results. So what I'm really thinking what he's fighting up against is today's society that is so impatient, because there is so much out there in the market that gives you a quick fix and a quick result, whether it's through chemicals or other kinds of stuff that UV lights and stuff like that, that you don't allow that type of system really do its function and mature to the point where it's going to work. And, it worked on mine, but it wasn't overnight. It was a process that I kind of, what I say, set it and forget it. It's one of those things where I put it in there, let it do its thing.
Hmm.
I didn't mess with it other than doing its regular maintenance that I needed to do, and that was pretty much it. And yeah, eventually it went away. It did get rid of that blackbeard algae, but again, I don't know if it was all a result of the BCB baskets or because I started increasing the number of water changes to try to eliminate some of the excess nutrients. So there could have been several factors that played into the process to definitively say, yeah, they worked 100%. To this date, oh, and then the other problem is like about a year and a half into it, that canister filter I was using ended up quitting on me and broke. So by
Yep.
that point, I never put it back in there, but I never had the algae come back either. So it's one of those where it's plausible. I wouldn't say definitively that it worked, but it's plausible because at the end of the day, it solved my issue. It didn't happen overnight. It took it, like I said, probably about good 12, 14 months to really say that it became where nothing was gonna mess with it. But yeah, I know you've done them, and I think you still have some that are running right in your systems.
That one there. Yep, still going. I notice a lot of the a lot of the negative comments towards Novak, they all say, "Oh, of course you got zero nitrates. The tanks are all full of plants." So I did it on a tank without any plants. So I made a few baskets and I put in the sump, and I don't have zero nitrates, but I change water every 2 or 3 weeks, and this one very rarely gets up to 20 parts per million. And you can see the fish in there, they get fed 6 days a week, and they get fed a fair bit. So it's up to you if you think you see what's in there. And if I just had a regular sponge filter and some clay balls or something, or not clay balls, or just your regular ceramic rings and things, what the nitrates in that tank would be. But what I know definitely works, and hand on heart, because I've done the experiment, is that the clay, the kitty litter, does drag the ammonia in. Because I tested it, I made up a couple of little canisters and filled it full of the kitty litter, and then I put between 1 and 2 parts per million ammonia. Like I used clear ammonia in a tank and tested it, and that's what it was.
Mhm.
And I put this in, and the ammonia was gone overnight because
Mhm.
obviously the clay had drawn that ammonia in. So I know
Yeah,
that part definitely works.
I know that on the plenum, which this tank right behind me, um, I noticed that for a while there, the plants were kind of struggling. They weren't necessarily getting the nutrients that they needed. So I started adding liquid ferts, but I only did it maybe like 2 or 3 times. What I think happened, and this is just me being an amateur scientist, not because I didn't do any experiments, but I think I had the same result that you did because I had heard him saying that you could supercharge your kitty litter by pouring liquid fertilization to it overnight and
Oh,
it would absorb it. And then
yep,
you had an enriched substrate.
yep.
Well, I think that's exactly what happened in there because like I said, I only dosed it maybe 3 times, left it alone, and all of a sudden my dwarf sage that was really struggling to get going, all of a sudden it was like a switch was turned on and it started going gangbusters to the point where it's
Yep.
all you can see where it's all full at the bottom. And
Yep.
and I think a lot of it is exactly that. The litter absorbed the nutrients that were in the water column and supercharged that substrate, and it just kind of put the nutrients that were necessary for the plants to be able to uptake them through the roots. And
Yep.
but it was like day and night the difference. I mean, it was very, very, very noticeable. Where I was like, "Whoa, there's something going on here with the kitty litter." I'm not. I don't have enough of a science background, or like Jeff laughs at me because I tell him I don't have doctor in front of my name, but I tried it and it really did. It did live up to what he had promised, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's what the kitty litter is doing, and that now it makes sense too when he was talking about it having that ionic reaction with the ammonia,
Yep.
and you
Ionic
basically
exchange. Yep.
bypass. yeah, you basically bypass your nitrates, and
Yeah,
you
that's
never
the
get
idea
them
because
because
well the plants will use ammonia before they use nitrates because when they have to convert the nitrate back to ammonia to use it. So if their roots are in the clay and that clay is grabbing the ammonia out of the water, that's the idea. That's what it's meant to do.
yeah, and that aquarium back here, it just grows plants like crazy. And
Yep.
I did that maybe, I don't know, over a year ago that I did that, and it's still going strong. I think also what's going on that one, I had used some organic soil, but I wasn't doing, because initially I was using like the one that I had the issues with. I was using that Father Fish method where he would talk about putting like a whole inch
Yep.
of dirt in the bottom. Well, I've come to find out you don't need that much. You could get away with a tenth of that amount
Yep.
and just kind of sprinkle the bottom, and it's going to provide enough nutrients. But
Yep.
I've learned that with experience because of trying it, trial and error. Well, this one I hadn't really that one I had set up and I hadn't put that much in it because I was trying to avoid that phase where you had all this algae growing. So I was very cognizant of putting just a sprinkle on the bottom. But I think it's giving with the liquid fish that I put in there, it gave it enough time for that whatever nutrients were down there to kind of either leach themselves away up to where the roots could have access to it, or the roots finally reach down far enough where they're consuming those nutrients. And ever since then, I haven't really had to mess with that aquarium. The other thing that I noticed is because I didn't use that much soil, it didn't get as hot. Because I know when you use like the 1 inch and cap it off, you could physically feel the glass at the bottom, the temperature difference. It's not going to burn your hand, but you can feel the water column being a little bit
Hmm.
cooler than it is down where the soil's at.
Yep.
And I later on found out that by doing that, a lot of times you were burning the roots from those plants, and that's why you weren't having success with some of the dirted tanks. So to fix that, and that's what I kind of did there. I ended up putting a ton of sand and gravel to try to create space between that 1 inch cap. So that aquarium has about a 5 inch substrate, 1 inch being the organic soil and about 4 inches of sand, because now I could insert the roots. They wouldn't be close to the soil, so they wouldn't burn out, and it gave it. I finally balanced it out, and now that it's got some huge Amazon swords that are growing out of there. But it's crazy because it's one of those things where you have to be willing to experiment, and it's trial and error. You just can't take things at face value, and if it doesn't work, then you kind of tweak it to make it work for your needs. And that's kind of what I've done with my entire fish room, which is kind of
Yeah.
what you've been doing with yours, isn't it?
Well, I've done 4 dirted tanks, and the method I do, I get the cheap organic soil from the hardware store because my dirt out is horrible. It's a really hard alkaline clay. It's full of limestone.
Yeah.
So I go and buy the very cheap organic soil, and you've got to sieve it because there's a lot of bark chips and wooden pieces in it. And then I mineralize it. And what that means is I soak it, then spread it out on a tarp to dry. And you want air and moisture contacting the soil at the same time. And then there's enzymes, and they break down the organics. And so that when you first do it, it smells like a sewer. It absolutely stinks.
Mm-hmm.
So then you dry it right out, and you keep stirring it up, and then you wet it and dry it and wet it and dry it. And by the end of it, it has like a grainy sand consistency, and it doesn't smell at all. And then I actually made a video, and I put it in there, and no algae whatsoever, and none of the gas bubbles that you get from when all those organics in the soil rot down, which is where your heat's coming from, and it shoots all those gas bubbles out. Well, I didn't get that because I'd already decomposed the organics.
Well, and that's the whole
And
thing, because I even had a discussion with a friend of mine about those gas bubbles. I mean, I still get them periodically on mine, but everybody made it seem like if you got gas bubbles, it would kill everything in there.
nah,
And luckily, knock on wood, that I haven't experienced any of that. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is urban legend and how much of it is realistically true, or is it something different that's happening in mine where it's not necessarily gas, but just maybe trapped air. But periodically, mine will still do it. You know, I have corridoras in most of my aquariums, and it'll be one of those where they'll move substrate and hit one of these little pockets, and
Yep.
boom, it'll come up. And you know, I would think, oh, that's going to kill that quarry or whatever is in that vicinity, and they do fine. I haven't lost anything that way.
Well, it's like CO2 injection. There's a reason why we have those very, very fine bubbles. It's because the water can't absorb it unless it's touching it. So you get one big gas bubble. None of it's entering the water because it shoots straight to the top and hits the atmosphere. That's what I think anyway. That's why I'm not worried about it. My first couple of dirted tanks, yeah, they same thing. They still, and you go to pull a plant out or something, there's bubbles and crap everywhere. But
See, Stephen
yeah,
P is kind of saying the same thing where he says
yep,
they just kind of go straight out of the tank. Yeah,
yeah,
because I remember watching videos on, oh, that'll kill your, especially with dirty tanks. That was,
yep.
I don't know how much of that stuff that you hear out there is just trying to steer people away from stuff that actually could work and save you money. And they want you to go more of the commercial route where you're having to spend money on products, or how much of it is, you know, it happened to somebody. So now all of a sudden it just kind of becomes where it's always going to happen. I don't know. In my personal experience from trying it over the course of the years that I've been doing this, it's a non-issue for me, but who's to say that it's not the case for somebody else?
Well, I saw one of the bigger channels many years ago, and they're talking about, is like looking after sand as a substrate. And one of the big things was, you've got to stir it up. Otherwise you get these gas bubbles and they'll poison your fish. And that was sand, that wasn't dirt. Okay. And I thought, well, how can it poison it? It goes straight up out the top and it's only in contact with the water for seconds. Yeah.
Well, it's because don't lakes and ponds do that? And they
Yep.
do it more than anything else because they get a lot of organics that actually fall into these bodies of water. And you know,
Yep.
I know we have one of the largest lakes in California. Well, I say we. I don't live in California anymore, but I'm right on the border with California. When I used to live in California, it's called the Salton Sea. And the problem with that we have there is an inversion problem. So what happens is, depending on the time of the year, you have all these organics that are in the bottom of the pond, and the water is cooler at the lower temperatures. But there's a phenomena that happens in that lake where the inversion layer flips itself. So all of a sudden, the warm water that's in the top goes to the bottom, and you get the cool water come up. And what would happen is it starts agitating all the bottom of that lake, and it puts all these organics up into the water column, and they start absorbing all the oxygen from the water, and that's what's killing the fish. But it's got nothing to do with gas bubbles. That's just an inversion of temperature in the water that creates this turmoil in the bottom, uplifts all these organic matters that consume all the oxygen. It's because of lack of oxygen and we have these massive fish die-offs. You can look it up on Google.
Yeah, we have the same.
Salton
We
Sea,
have the same here. Yeah,
and
when we have big floods come down the river, and it covers a lot of area that hasn't been underwater for years, and it's all covered in leaf litter and sticks and things. Yeah, and the water just goes black and it goes acidic, and there's just no oxygen. Yeah, and just there's one river, particularly not far from home, that doesn't flow very fast at the best of times, and they have massive fish die-offs there. And they blame everything, but it's just nature. It's what it is.
yeah, but yeah, having gas bubbles in your aquariums, that's never been an issue for me. And I know at first I used to, worry about it. It was so funny because I remember going back to when I was keeping fish originally, when I didn't know anything. Not that I know anything now, but when I knew a lot less than I know now, I never had any issues like that. It was non-issues. I had the undergobble filters. As a matter of fact, if PETA was around back then, I would have probably been put in jail because I did everything you weren't supposed to do. Water changes were emptying everything out, scrubbing everything clean, putting everything back in there, putting the fish in there. No dechlorinator, none of this stuff, right? None of this stuff that you commercially get bamboozled into buying in today's society. It just none of that really, if it existed because of lack of advertisement, unless you were reading a magazine, that's where you were going to see those ads for that. But other than that, not like now, where you have content creators and they're talking about it and they're pushing these products and doing all this stuff, that you become aware of that. And then you get people that I don't even think they have personally have aquariums where they're trying out stuff, but they're trying to convince you that you shouldn't do it that way, and they haven't even tried it themselves. That's where I have a little bit of a problem with people doing stuff like that. Is like, look, you can preach to me if you've already done the stuff and you did it for whatever amount of time, and if it didn't work out for you, then that's fine. I get that, because not everything's guaranteed to work for everybody. But if you haven't,
so a lot of these Facebook groups, someone will get on and ask a question, and you get all these people, oh, I don't know, but blah, 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 blah. This is what you have to do. And I had someone ask about, I had a piece of wood he'd picked up down at the local lake, and he says, oh, it smells funny and it's got all this scum. Like, how do I sterilize it? It's too big to boil it, and blah, blah, blah. And I just said, well, hit it with a bit of bleach. The amount of people, oh, please don't use bleach. Bleach will absorb into the wood. And I said, well, you explain to me what's bad about the bleach. Oh, no, bleach will kill the fish. And I said, well, how? Bleach is hypersodium chloride, which means it's salt and chlorine. And as soon as it hits the water, it starts separating into salt and chlorine. So chlorine will evaporate, and salt, you get rid of that with a water change. And they said, oh, well, I wouldn't do it. And I said, well, I got a tank full of stuff that I did, because I didn't know, I wasn't really sure where it came from, was a bit, how you going? So I dosed it. I put in a big 1,000, one of those IBCs, and I put about 10 litres of bleach in it, and I left it for a week. Right? Good as gold. It still grew all the biofilm and things, and the bristle nose, all the catfish were fine with it. So yeah, all these people, they just think, oh, bleach is bad. I said, mate, I'm not putting a fish in a cup of bleach. I'm cleaning some wood, then putting it in the tank. Yeah, but you can't use bleach. You can't use bleach.
Yeah, if you rinse it.
Why?
Well, doesn't bleach, if you just let it sit, won't it just evaporate from whatever surface you put it on? It doesn't hang around, does it?
No. Well, once it comes into contact with water, it starts to break down. So you mix it with the water, and once it comes in the water, it breaks down into salt and chlorine. And chlorine's not a bad thing, because it'll evaporate. If you're really worried about it, you can put your water conditioner in, but I don't even own any of that, because I don't have chlorine where I live. So, but I'll soak it, then I'll let it soak for another week, just to be sure. But yeah, I wash everything in bleach. When you get algae on your CO2 gear.
Video. Yeah, I was watching a video. I think it was they were recharging Purigen, and you got to put it in bleach to recharge it, and that's what they were kind of explaining, is like, you can recharge these and just rinse them out, but for peace of mind, just add a little bit of dechlorinator if that's really a concern for you, and you'll be fine. So when listening to stuff like that, I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe it's not the evil villain that they make it out to be, unless you blatantly dump a whole bottle of bleach into the aquarium, accidentally spill it in there, then it might be a problem. It's like the other thing that I remember is never use like glass cleaner on your aquariums, because you'll kill all of your fish. And I use it all the time. I mean, I don't spray it on the top, but even the overspray, it's never been an issue for me. But you won't hear me advocating people to use it. I just know personally from doing it in the fish room, it's not. It's, some people think that they want to treat everything so sterile that that they think anything is going to kill these fish. Well, fish in nature are a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. How much junk do we put in their waterways, and they still manage to thrive and survive?
Yeah, make sure you wash your hands before you put them in the tank. And they mate, unless I've been out spraying Roundup or something, my hands are generally not too bad. Wipe the grease off them and off I go. Yeah. I think, yeah, like you said, Dave,
Yeah, like I'll
sometimes if it's
periodically.
too sterile, if it's too sterile, that's probably worse than just letting things go, letting nature take care of it.
Yeah, but then again, I don't mess a lot with my aquarium. Most of my aquariums, I've set them up. the The only time I usually go in there and really get my hands in there, other than a water change, is if I want to remove some of the jungle valve, because that stuff will go and get crazy to the point where it's just so thick the fish can't swim in there, and I got to go in there and actually remove stuff.
Yep.
But other than that, I really kind of set up a tank. Now, I know when I was first starting out, that was not the case. And then the biggest problem is that I only had one aquarium when I started out. So you're always trying to do stuff. You don't want to leave it alone. You know, you're constantly trying to aquascape it, and then you're trying to do this other stuff. So you're constantly messing with it. And I think that is probably more harmful than anything else that you're doing, is the constantly messing, pulling stuff out, putting it back in. I think that is probably more damaging than any of the other stuff that they talk about. And now is because I've got a little bit more experience, and I kind of know how plants are going to grow now, that I know, okay, I can put this plant back here. It's not going to become a problem. And I can set it and forget it, you know, pretty much just go in there and trim stuff that I need to trim. But if you watch my videos, my tanks pretty much stay the same way. You can go back 3 years. The only difference is it'll have more plants because they grew out, but not because, you know, I'm adding, taking away, removing. I just let them go. Let them go wild.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's all I do. I just do water changes, scoop the duckweed off the top, which is a never-ending job. Yeah, and just trim plants. Like, yeah, my days of changing things for the sake of changing things, they're long gone.
Yeah. Nowadays, the only thing I'm pulling out of there is either hornwort or guppy grass, just because it'll get so thick. Like this one up here has got a ton of hornwort that I probably need to go in there and thin out. This one, you can see, this one's all just dwarf hair Sagittarius, and I got some guppy grass on the top, but I kind of leave them alone. I don't care. I like them personally. Looking into them, and I've kind of neglected that whole aquascaping rule where you don't want tall plants in the front. I get it. Aquascaping is a whole different animal. That is kind of art in itself. You know, you're trying to mimic a vision that you have in your mind, and it's more of an artistic rendition when you're getting to the aquascaping. I don't necessarily do that. I just let them go do their own thing. And what I have noticed, by allowing plants to grow up on the front of the glass, my fish are not as sketchy. You know, they don't dart away immediately when they see me, because they feel, because there's plants in the front that are kind of tall, they feel that they think that I can't see them, so they tend to act a lot more different. They're a lot more, I guess, quote unquote, normal behavior. Where instead of them immediately dodging to the back and trying to seek cover. And I've kind of enjoyed that, because now I can sit and observe the fish and see what they normally do when I'm not standing in front of them, because they really can't see me.
Yep. Yeah, well, I did the whole aquascape, you know, with the rocks and the plants, and it looked beautiful with a little sand path, and even when I made the video on it, I said, if you're the kind of person who just can't help themselves, and you've always got to have your hands in the tank, this is the kind of style for you. But for me, look, I've done it once and it was nice to have it, but I'm just not dedicated enough to go in there every day with the tweezers and just trim that little bit and tidy that little bit, and I just let it overgrow too much. Yeah,
but I get that. You know what? What I've found out is if you don't have access to a lot of aquariums, I highly recommend the aquascaping.
Oh yeah, yep.
The reason I say that is because what you just said, it allows you to have a lot more interaction because you got to constantly go in there and do the trimming, and there's some upkeep to keep that look.
Yep.
I've kind of grown out of that phase now, where since I have multiple tanks, I got other stuff that keeps me busy, and necessarily keeping a manicured aquarium is not one of them.
Yeah.
Again,
Yep.
I'm kind of more interested in trying to see what breeds and how it breeds, but I want to do it where it's kind of more in a community setting. I don't want to have to be pulling eggs out, and obviously it hasn't really worked too well for me, because there's a reason why you pull the eggs out if you're trying to breed. You're trying to prevent the parents either from eating the eggs or eating the fry. But
Yep.
in my thinking, my way of thinking is, if I can get these tanks to look kind of like this, where it might give the fry an opportunity to hide out. Again, I am not looking to breed for maximum amount. If I get out of a clutch, if I can get 3 or 4 extra fish that I didn't have before, for me, that's I consider that a success.
Yep.
Because then I just have more of the fish that I actually want.
Yeah, well, that's by a little.
Yeah.
My little blackwater tank. There's a pistogramma breeding in there, and at one stage there was fry from 3 different spawns, all in the same tank, because there's all the leaf litter, and I tried to make it as natural as possible. And and it's great. And you go and you see the tiny little fry, and then you see the medium-sized one, and then you see the bigger ones. And they're all just living their best life in there. It's really good. Oh, Mal, right. Well, struck a bit of an issue. So for those who don't know, I'm building a new fish room, and it's in one end of my shed. So it's got to be 20 feet square or 6 meters square. So I managed to find a heap of cheap cool room panel and tooted off to Adelaide, brought it home. Now, Mal, I string lined it all out, and I got the laser and made sure everything was straight, and I bolted down the channel that the panel sits in. And then I thought, I stood one up, and it looked like it leaned a bit, and I thought, I might just put the laser right on the ground, and I'll measure how level this slab is. Well, there's a 30 millimeter drop down one side of it. So, which is like an inch and a quarter or so. So, which means either I just make all the tanks with one leg shorter than the other, so they all follow that lean, or I'm looking at getting some self-leveling floor, but I'm going to need a lot of it. And unfortunately, there's 4 coats of paint on that floor, so I've got to see if I can strip the paint first. So I'm just waiting for some paint stripper. But yes, stay tuned. It's going to be very interesting. A lot of fun. Yay.
What was it? The slab that dipped, or just when it was poured?
Oh no, it's just when it was poured, because it was inside. They built the shed, then they've just poured it inside the shed, and it's never ever been an issue, unless of course you want to put a fish tank in there. And it's because it's such a big fall, and it doesn't. It's not like it all falls evenly. Like one corner's 30 mil, one corner's about 12, and then another corner's about 8, and then one corner is level, and then there's a little high bit in the middle somewhere. So
okay.
Fun and games, yes. Yeah, so I'm sitting here, I'm just waiting for some stuff to come, looking out the backyard, all the cool room panel there stacked up, and I just hope we don't have another dust storm and it all blows away. So there, Mel, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, for those of you that are not familiar with Gil's Fish Room, and if somebody can do me a favor and drop the link for Gil's channel, one of the things that I really find interesting is you do a lot of DIY projects. And a lot of it here's the thing. A lot of people, when they think of DIY, they think like cheap, but ugly. It's kind of like, you're doing it on the cheap and you don't want it to look very aesthetic. Yeah. But what I really like about what you're doing is it's a DIY project, but it looks very nice. And I'm referring to like the one that I really liked were the glass bottles that you used to make the hoods for the spotlights.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I thought when I looked at that, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Even the one you did with the tin can.
Yep.
Had you not pointed out that it was a tin can when I looked at it in that set up in that cube, I was like, man, that looks like one of those Kessel lights, because that's kind of the effect that you were getting off of the water. And,
Yep.
and then you turn around and show that it's, what is it, a green bean can that you emptied out?
Yeah,
And
baked beans. Yep.
oh, baked beans.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
if you're looking at, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the one with the beer bottles, it's because it's in the middle of the lounge room, and you've got like the couch and the TV and stuff there. So if I didn't want the lights like to blind you and then sort of dominate the whole room, so I found the darkest bottle I can find, and it just sort of directs the light down, but it still lets a little bit out. And it looks. Most people come and have a look and they're really good. And it's not till they get up really close they realise what they are, because from a distance it doesn't look like a beer bottle.
What's really appealing about them is that you can see the glow of the light, because it's dark glass. You're using amber bottles, and you can kind of see the glow, but it's not distracting, and it gives it a different effect versus just a straight can light, where it's just the aluminum casing and all you see. So that, to me, when I saw it, I was like, wow, what is he using up there? And then I see you and your mate having a couple of beers.
Yeah, that was hard work. That was a big afternoon.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen Gil's channel, besides being very informative and giving you a lot of great tips, somebody left a comment in there that I thought was spot on, that they loved it because you can explain things in a very layman's terms, very easy to comprehend and understand what it is you're doing and how you're going about doing it. And that is a real talent. Not everybody can do that, where they can explain things where it's very clear and very easy to understand. And the cherry on top of all of this is that it's your sense of humor. The way you do your videos, not only are you getting educated, but you can have a good time. And I love that you don't take yourself very seriously. You're the first one to be able to laugh at yourself. Your channel reminds me a lot of what Mal does, Aquarium Delirium. You guys are very similar in your guys' approach as to when you guys do your videos. And I love that, because not only am I getting an education, but I'm also getting the added bonus of entertainment, which is very hard to do. To be educational and entertaining, it's a real hard balance to strike. And you guys have got it nailed.
Yeah, I think because I don't take it seriously, like I don't really care about views and subscribers and things. I just do it for a bit of fun for myself. So I don't really care. And so I make videos that I would want to watch. And then that's why I speed everything up, because I get bored really easy. So, if I'm doing something, I'll speed it up as fast as I possibly can and just try and keep it fast paced, because I get bored very easy. But Mal's stuff, especially the Godfather. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, he doesn't. And Indiana Jones was my favorite.
I like it when he does characters. Indiana Jones was a really good one.
Yep.
Where he's the doctor. He's always doing something, and I love that, because again, it's one of those things where you not only do you get a moment of humor in what you're watching, and for me, I tend to learn better that way, because I'm more focused, because I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm learning at the same time. And you guys nail that right on the head. Those are the type of videos that I enjoy watching so much, because they're so easy to take in. And before you know it, you've learned something new that you weren't aware of in the process of having a good time. And I really do, guys, appreciate both you and him for having that style. There's another guy, Brenton's Fish, who I just came across, I think sometime this year. He's that same type of channel. He has a lot of amazing humor that he uses, but he's also very informative. Again, somebody that doesn't take themselves way too serious. That to me is like a big a turnoff, where somebody is just too full of themselves, and they're high and mighty on their horse, and they're Mr. Know-it-all. I can't stand that. I quickly uncheck from that. But stuff like yours, like Brandon's and Mal's, Aquarium Delirium, man, I look forward to those videos because of that. Because I'm going to learn something new, and I'm going to have a good time learning in the process.
Yep, and I think it's like some
Aquarium is
DIY videos. You go and watch a DIY, you think, oh, that looks really good. I'd like to know how to do that, but you need this $10,000 machine, and you need this stuff which is really expensive, and you think, yeah, that's kind of out of range of the normal person. Whereas, like, everyone can get hold of a baked bean tin and a bit of pipe. Like, that's easy done. Like, all my stuff
and I
comes
love the
off
fact that
eBay or yeah.
I love the fact that you actually showed your process, like using the heat gun to make the pipes pliable, to be able to make the stands for the lights, all those little tips and how you go about doing that stuff. And it, not everybody has that ingenuity, but if you see it, you can replicate it. And you guys do a really good job of demonstrating that. And so it makes it where it's like, oh, I can tackle this. It takes that intimidation factor out of it, and basically you guys put it together in a way that if you just follow the video, you'll be able to have success. And
Yeah, well, that's what I like to say. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
I enjoy
that. Yeah, if I can do it, a trained monkey could do it. Simple.
Now, are you currently doing any breeding, or are you just mostly display tanks that you have set up?
Not intentional breeding.
Okay.
I've got a lot of stuff that just does breed. Like this tank here, I've got a couple of different species of Geophagus in there, always breeding. And I've got some Epistogramma breeding, a heap of Pygmicories breeding, some peppermint bristlenose breeding at the moment. Yeah, but because of where I am, it's really hard to get rid of stuff. I had a mate who wanted some I wanted some angels. Can you breed me some angels? So I bred him some angels and ended up with about 500 or 600, and then just couldn't get rid of them all. Same problem Mel had. Yeah, and because I lived so far away from anywhere, I got onto a distributor in Adelaide, and he came out and met me in the truck, but I had to get up at ridiculous hour of the morning to go and box up all these fish and take down there. But yeah, it's just too hard. Like, it's good. I like doing it, but yeah, I'll breed stuff myself now. Like, did a heap of emerald green Rasboras, those Kubertai Rasboras, to put in my nice fancy planted tank. But yeah.
Are you letting them community breed, or are you pulling the eggs for those?
Nah, those I made an automatic egg collector out of a milk carton or a milk bottle. Yeah, so I just didn't really have to do anything. I just put them in and let them go.
So, but you are taking the eggs out of that aquarium and putting in hatching them elsewhere, or are you letting them hatch in the same tank?
No, those ones they have an egg catcher which is made out of a 2-liter plastic milk bottle. Yeah, with the mesh and with the air tube, and it goes up into a breeder box. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're hatching in the breeder box. Once they get a little bit bigger, you incorporate them back into the tanker.
Yeah, I'll put them in the big tank. Yeah. Yeah, but I did a heap of albino cherry barbs for someone. And yeah, I had heaps of those for ages. The last few I went down to Mark Stelson, dropped them off down to him. What else? Yeah, bred a heap of Geophagus because I wanted some more for myself, and ended up with about 50 I had to find homes for. So yeah, all the way out here, it's too hard. There's not enough people here to move stuff off. Yeah. But yeah, breeding's cool. Like, that's fun.
You guys don't have any fish clubs up in your area? No. Now, you live on the outskirts of Sydney or in Sydney proper?
I live about 1,000 kilometers from Sydney.
Okay. Yeah, you're out. You're out.
Yeah,
because when you told me you're on Sydney time, I thought okay, maybe you're on the outskirts of the city limits, but no, you're
same time zone. Yeah, my nearest aquarium shop is 4.5 hours away.
They're asking if you're in Melbourne.
Nope, Mildura. Oh, Merbean. So I'm north of Mildura. I'm in between Mildura and the New South Wales border. So yeah, I'm
It's a rural
6.
community where you're at.
Yeah, there's a city close, which is but it's still a rural city. Yeah, but the nearest big place is Adelaide, which it's 400 kilometres away, and then Melbourne's about 550, and Sydney's is 1,000.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I don't get to go to fish shops very often. Yeah, but
So
whenever we have
when you hit them
Sorry?
when you're making deliveries and you have a little bit extra time, is that when you go hit up the fish shops, or you take?
Well, there was one I used to be able to, but now my run has changed, so I'm always down there in the dark. But there was one place I could pull up across the road, and then run across 4 lanes of traffic and head down the street, and I could get there, and that was good because they used to buy a fair bit of stuff off me, but now I can't get there. But if we ever have to go to Melbourne for any reason, like take a kid to the doctor or something, it's always a 2-day trip. So the first day is looking after what we have to do, and the second day is a fish shop tour. We go around to all of them and then come home late. Yeah, it's a bit of a big deal. It's exciting.
Oh, we got somebody from Scotland.
Oh, geez, bet it's cold there. Just because it's always cold there.
I was going to say, isn't it always cold in Scotland?
Yep. Never met a Scotsman I didn't like. I can honestly say that.
Yeah, we don't get too many down here in Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't think they're built for this weather down here either, because we're always hot.
Yeah, well, we get a lot of backpackers come here, like especially in the fruit picking season, and we get them at work. They come in the work in the wash bay. They wash trucks and that, so you get to talk to like young people from all over the world. It's really it's good. But we got a couple of Spaniards there, and a German, and a Dutch, and a couple of Islanders at the moment. Yeah. But the best, we had a couple of Irish guys that sort of stayed. They came back the next year as well. They loved it so much, but yeah, they struggled in the weather when it got really hot.
Yeah, no, that's funny because every time I think of you guys in Australia, I can't help but think that everything out in nature wants to kill you. And then I watch videos where you're walking around barefoot outside in the back. I watch Adrian's fish room. He's always walking around. It's like, don't you guys have like the deadliest snakes, the deadliest whatever? Everything that can kill you is out there in Australia, and you guys are strolling around like it's no big deal.
Well, during the day's all right because you could see him coming, but I stepped on a brown snake at night once. It's just it's a miracle it never turned around and bit me. I just stood down and then felt something and then lifted the foot up, and he went one way and I went the other way. So I thought, lucky there. Should have had shoes on, but I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
plenty of dangerous stuff here.
Yeah, you guys are, strolling out in nature. That's like I'll watch Nick from Keep Fish Simple.
Yep.
And he'll go out and do collecting, out in the wild and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, don't you guys have to deal with like crocodiles and these, all these snakes that are out there? You guys have like out of the 10 deadliest, you guys have like 8 of them. And they're all in the same area. It's kind of like you guys are nuts by leaving your house. But I guess it's
north of where Nick is, like north Brisbane inland a little bit more. Yeah, it's got the deadliest snake in the world, like the coastal taipan, lives up there. Yeah, you're lucky if you get to hospital. Yep.
Yeah, that in itself would never want me to go out and walk in nature like you guys.
I just got to make lots of noise. Yeah, make lots of noise.
And then you got kangaroos out there that'll beat the living crap out of you. Those things are jacked. I mean, you look at them and like they look like bodybuilders. It's like, what in the world? Everything out there is could beat you down in a heartbeat.
It can, yeah. So you just got to learn to Keep your eyes open. But worst stuff, spiders is the bad one because you can't see them till they've bit you. So yeah, we've
What is this?
got one spiders. We've got one here
Oh,
called
okay.
a white tail spider, and if you get the venom in your arm, say, all your flesh turns necrotic, the flesh starts dying. So you end up with this little bite,
Mm,
and the hole in your arm gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and they've got to hit you with some fairly strong antibiotics to control it. Otherwise, you lose the arm. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds like the brown recluse that's out here in the States. And it's a little tiny. It doesn't get bigger than a quarter size, what we call 25 cent piece.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it do. It'll bite you, and it starts killing all the tissue around that area. And there's some nasty bites. I mean, you'll survive it, but you probably end up losing some fingers, or because usually the bites usually happen on the hand, and you'll lose a finger or something in the process. If not, you'll end up with a nasty scar from where they had to open it up to allow the pus and all that stuff to ooze out. It's not fun. But that's only if you go messing around in the woods and stick your hand where it doesn't belong.
Mm. Yeah, I know. I suppose when I was young, I got bit. I got bit just there by a goanna that I climbed up a tree to try and catch because it was only that big, and it bit me on the hand. And every few years, I get a really big red angry scar there, and then it'll heal and it'll go away, and then it comes back sort of every 3 or 4 years for some reason. But apparently, it's something to do with the bacteria in their mouth.
Oh, okay.
So lesson there: don't go chasing goannas.
Yeah, just don't go on the outdoors in Australia.
Yeah, don't muck with it. Yeah.
Stay in the city. It's better to deal with the humans than it is with these animals.
Yeah, it's funny though. Look, we've had people come out from overseas and they expect to see kangaroos hopping in the main street, and it's kind of where I live. It happens a fair bit, so it's really funny when you're sitting at a shop and you watch a kangaroo hop past. But
Well, let
they
me ask you
think
this:
Sydney's like that.
since you drive a truck for a living, I know out here in the United States, some of the things that truckers need to be aware of are deer, because they'll run out into the highway, and they'll hit them on occasion. Is that the same thing with kangaroos out there, or that's a non-issue?
No, nighttime kangaroo, or generally all the time, but mostly at nighttime, like right on dusk, and then first thing in the morning. Kangaroos are a big problem. During the day, emus, because emus are really, really stupid, and they'll come out on the road and they'll run directly where you're heading. They won't run across the road. Pigs, wombats are pretty bad, because you hit a wombat, it's like hitting a block of concrete because they're so solid.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, but you try and avoid it. But then out in if you go across Australia, across the middle, camels are very dangerous. Because if you hit a camel and you're up in
Camels.
a truck, yeah, there's lots of feral camels, because that's how they settled all the outback. They had Afghan camel, they had the camel trains, like before they had cars and things. So that's how they supplied all the stations and that out there. So now there's lots of feral camels. So if you hit one of those, the head will fling back like a big pendulum, and it'll end up in the windscreen with you. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that was an issue down there. Camels.
Oh, they're thousands and thousands and thousands, and they're sort of destroying all the middle of the country. Yeah. Feral camels, feral donkeys, feral rabbits, feral foxes. Yeah.
Yeah, we have donkeys out here too. That where I work at, it's almost every night I'll come across donkeys out on the road. Almost every single night. I've uploaded videos on Instagram where they'll be parallel to you, and that's like the worst thing that could happen with an animal, a wild animal, is when they start going parallel to your vehicle, because at any point they could decide to turn in front of you. So you really have to slow down and let them get ahead of you so that you don't run into them. I know deers, that's a big issue. The deers will get startled and they'll run parallel to vehicles, and then all of a sudden they decide that they think they can get across, and that's when you end up getting to the real nasty accidents.
Yeah, well, when you see a kangaroo on the road, you see it and you forget it. You don't worry about it because he's hopping across the road. It's the 3 or 4 standing in the bush that want to follow him. They're the ones you have to worry about because you'll think, yep, that kangaroo's gone. It's all right. And just as you get there, all the little ones will hop out behind it or another.
Oh,
Yeah, but you
now
get all the
are they
so you get all
massive
the
enough? Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Do they have enough mass to create a lot of vehicle damage?
Yeah, yep, yep.
Okay.
You get depending on where you are, sort of where we are, you get lots of little grey ones, and they've grown up around here. They've grown up on the side of the road because if you get a very small amount of rain, it runs off the bitumen road, and it'll grow a little bit of grass there, and it'll be the only bit. So the little roos, they'll live there and they'll just stand there and watch the trucks go past. That's fine. But when it gets really dry up in the centre, you get the big red kangaroos come down and they're like 7 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, that's a big
you, yeah.
massive body that yeah,
But,
it's gonna do
but
some.
my truck's got 3-inch aluminium bars on the front of it. And I hit one night and he bent the bar. And I wasn't even going that fast either because there was a lot of roos that night. And this big bloke just stepped out. Yeah, they do hit very hard. And yeah, they'll write. You see written off cars all the time. Like the cars just all smashed in, cooling everywhere. Yep, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I know, especially like in more of the more vegetated areas. Down here we have see the advantage of being out in the desert. We do get some deer out here, but because it's so flat.
Hello, is anyone else seeing him frozen or just me?
We're back.
Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back. Yep.
Oh, okay. I was the one.
Yep.
Yeah, I
You're
was
frozen.
listening. Yeah, I forgot who I was listening to. That having all these aquariums in this area really eats up your signal. I was wondering why I have so many issues, especially now that I've set it up the way I did. I have basically surrounded the entire walls of this building with glass boxes, and it's always been since I did that. I noticed that my signal gets weird, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to put an extender
Booster. Yep.
a booster out here in the garage to avoid that. But I didn't know it was because of the boxes, and I guess at 2.4 hertz or whatever, it's the same frequency that these aquariums will absorb a lot of the signal, so you lose a lot of the Wi-Fi. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
There you go. Never knew that. See, viewers, you always learn something on Mexicali's fish room. Fish keeper. There you go. Always learn something.
I don't know about that, but yeah, no, it's just it's always I've always been interested, especially like seeing other people in other countries how they do what they do with aquariums, stuff like that. Like one of the trends that I see, like in in the UK, and I think a lot of it is because of homes tend to be a little bit smaller, and that's just because the population density is much higher. That the style of fish keeping tends to be more. You can have 1 or 2 tanks, and because you can have 1 or 2 tanks, and they're usually in the living area, they become like these little display tanks. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have a lot of people that are into the aquascaping, because it's kind of everybody can see it. Try the 5 hertz setting on your. Oh, okay. I'll have to try that. The gigahertz, 5 gigahertz. I'll definitely do that, and then see if it'll improve my signal. And like I said, I noticed that a lot of people in the UK tend to have less amount of tanks, unlike here in the States. In the States, we're gluttons. We want everything big, more, a lot. And we keep. That's why we have a lot of people that'll keep these massive aquariums with these monster fish in them, and it's a whole different style of fish keeping here in the States. But I look at other countries, and I'm always fascinated by the way they do things, and a lot of it is based on what you're given, what you can do. So But like you guys are kind of similar to us, where you guys have a lot of space and homes tend to be a little bit bigger. They're not. You guys
Yep.
have yards in your properties. You know your
Yeah,
neighbors are
generally,
not.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
for the most part, unless you live like in the urban settings, and
Yep.
then it's going to be like any city. Even here in the states, you live like, for example, New York, which is one of the most densely populated. Yeah, your homes are going to be much smaller,
Mm,
and it's going to be a lot more expensive. So, but in the further west you move, the bigger it gets. But that's
true.
because we
Yep.
have more. We're not as
Yeah.
densely populated as the rest of as the eastern side of this country, because that's where it kind of grew. And you can see it.
Yep.
It's interesting because you can see the growth of the country. You know, everything started out in the East Coast for the most part, and
Yep.
gradually started making its way west.
Yeah. Pretty much the same
Hey,
here. Yeah.
good night, Anthony. I see.
Yeah, but it's funny. Yeah, it's funny about talking about like different countries. I've got a lot of people I talk to in Germany with the South American cichlids, and their tanks are just something else. Like they go real full biotope mode, and their lighting is just something to behold because they're all technical guys over there, and it's all made in Germany. So you know it's going to be really, really good. And then you'd have to sell one of your kids to have that sort of setup here. But it's just unbelievable the stuff they do. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no, oh, I've got two goldfish in a princess castle. There's none of that in Germany. It's all, mate, we're
Yeah,
going to do it. We're going to do it
they
German style. Yep.
they take the hobby a lot more serious. But
Yeah.
again, I
Yep.
wonder if it's one of those things where because they don't have the square footage in their homes, that whatever they put up, kind of like what it is in the UK, um, you have more limited space, so it's usually right in the living areas or traffic areas that you actually want to make it look nice. It's people are
Yeah.
going to be
Yep.
coming to your home and they're going to see it.
Yep.
It's probably be the same way I would do it if I had an aquarium inside the house. If I had an aquarium inside the house, my wife would be on top of me to make sure that it looked very presentable, kind of like what you would
Yeah.
see at a display at a fish store or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
Just because people are gonna come in, like what you have behind you, that would be something that
Yeah.
would be passed for an inside the house aquarium. Not this junk out here.
Yeah.
This stuff is for my. And she tells me, she goes, "Why don't you do something about that?" I go, "Because I'm doing something different. It's not. These tanks are not set up as display tanks. I'm trying to make it a habitat that'll allow the fish that are there to be able to produce more."
Hmm.
And she goes, "Oh, okay." And then she'll walk inside the house, kind of shaking her head, like, because she
Just
likes
tell
the
them
other
beauty
side.
in nature. Yep.
Yeah, she likes the other
Beauty
side
in
where
nature. Yeah.
I have a little bit more of a display tanks, quote unquote.
Yep.
I mean, they have a little bit more of an effort that I do with them as far as making them look so that I'm not necessarily breeding out of those tanks. These tanks behind me are stuff that I'm trying to reproduce. So the setup is going to be very different. And if I was real serious about setting them up, they would look a lot different. It would be like a glass box with water and a filter
Yep.
and traps to capture whatever it is that I'm trying to breed. But I just don't have the time with my work schedule to do that. So I kind of try to set it up so that it automatically happens. And again, my idea now is if I get out of a whole clutch of eggs, if I can get 5 out of them, it's good.
Mm,
I call that successful. Because again, what am I going to do with 30 of the same fish? It's not.
exactly. Yep.
I'm kind of like you. I don't have a place really to offload. I was breeding angels for a while, and I flooded the market out here real quick.
Mm,
It's just so many people are going to buy them, and it's not like angels, die real quick. They grow up, become old, and die. People will hang on to them if they take care of them, they'll last, a
mm,
few years. So I quit reproducing them for that reason, because it's kind of like, well, what did I do with so many angels?
yep.
And then,
And,
uh,
and what you're doing there, like you're saying, you only get you're only happy if you get 3 or 4. That's a win. I think it's knowing that you've made that tank so the fish are comfortable enough to breed. Like they're happy enough in there. That's it's
yeah,
the conditions are right. They're not stressed. They're not struggling. Look, They'll only breed if they're happy. So that's the thing I like. I love it when my stuff spawns. I don't care. I don't want any of the fry. I'm not worried, but I know I've done a good job because that fish is happy enough to spawn.
Yeah. I
That's
think
what
if I
makes me
lived in
feel
a
warm inside.
if I lived in a different area where I know I had access to more fish stores,
Yep.
um, I probably would try to breed more stuff because then even if I just go offload it there, kind of like all right. Because one of the things is you want to try your hand, or at least my case is that I want to try these, see if I can figure out how to breed them.
Yep.
But once you breed them, you also got to be cognizant of what are you going to do with the fry.
Yep.
They're going to grow up, and eventually you're going to have a bunch of fish. So that's why I kind of purposely don't pull stuff out unless I know I have a person that wants them. Like for right now, I'm trying to breed some Bozeman eye rainbow fish, and that's because the relationship that I have with one of the stores up in Phoenix, he said if you can breed as many of these as you can breed, I'll buy them from you because he
Yep.
has people looking for them. So I said, okay, I'll try it. So he gave me a group to try to breed them, and he's the one that I'll take them a bunch of just like fancy guppies because he can't get his hands on good just fancy guppies. A lot of the stuff that he buys from the wholesalers are more of like line guppies, stuff that has been line bred.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a lot of people that come in and they just want, they're starting up an aquarium for their kids, and they just want some colorful fish. So
Yep.
that's where I'm kind of happy that that's the case because now anything that I breed in guppies, I know I have somewhere to take them. And anybody that's kept guppies, that they're prolific breeders. And I don't really care to get. I'm not doing this to make. Actually, cost me money to take it to them because I got to drive 3 hours to get up to the store.
Yep.
But what I like about it is I don't have to spend money at the store because I'll take them up. I'll take them like at 100 at a time, and then he'll trade me for like for example those Bozeman eye. He goes take
Yep.
those. He gave me a breeding group of those. He gave me a breeding group of the Fricata, the forktails. He gave me a colony of 8, and he gave me a male and 2 females. He goes, try to breed those, and if you can breed those, you can bring them back to the store and take something else. So that for me has been a way to try different fish to try to breed them.
Yep.
But I know that if I successfully breed them, I've got somewhere that they're going to go.
Yep. Yeah. No,
And
best of
those
both
are
worlds there.
yeah. So, but I'm not going crazy and trying to breed like a ton of them either because I just don't have the time. I just started putting mops in those. I think they're at a size now where they'll start laying eggs, and eventually I'll pull those mops, put them in a little plastic tote, and see what hatches out of that, and then grow those out. And I figured if I can take them a group of maybe 50, I'm pretty sure he'll be happy.
Yep.
Anywhere between 30 or 50, he'll be like, okay, and give me credit or say, oh, now try these. I
Try
was
these
taking them
ones.
angelfish, but again, angelfish, everybody in that area was breeding angelfish too. So he goes, I don't need any more angelfish.
Yep. Yeah. Did you see the way I bred my albino cherry barbs?
No.
What I did, I had a tank with a heap of plants in it and had a couple of small plecos in the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and I just left it. So the plants died, like lots of Java fern and stuff. So the plants are dying, growing, dying, and I just left it for a couple of months. So it would have been full of infusoria and all the microorganisms and good stuff. And so I got a pond basket, like a mesh basket, and zip tied some corks to it and floated it, and then put a male and 2 females in the top, and they bang straight into it because I kept them separated. And then once I think I left them in overnight, and then the next morning just took them all out and put them back in their tanks and let it go, and I just ended up with hundreds of fry.
Mm.
Yep, simple. It's the easiest way I've ever bred a fish. And
Yeah.
I try and
Usually the challenge that it gets it's hatching the eggs. Usually it's not that hard. The challenge comes into being able to feed them enough to be able to get them to grow.
Yep. See,
Get them.
I didn't feed them for the first 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't feed them till they were big enough to eat crushed up flakes.
Mm.
Because there was enough in that tank from being just let go that there was enough, bits and pieces for them to survive on. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm like you, because I'm always at work. I can't, if you're feeding your baby brine shrimp or something, I can't feed them 3 or 4 times a day because I'm only here once a day,
Yeah.
and that's where
Yeah.
I struggle. So yeah, if you can set up a tank where the tank feeds the fish like while they're small, yeah, I just found that the best way to do it for me. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was.
I remember watching Nick that he had a bucket where he would throw in hornwort and use tank water,
Yep,
and he was growing infusoria out of that. And that's what he was.
yep,
He would take it. He would dip in a cup into that, and feed whatever fry he had out of it. And I was
yep,
doing that for a while, but I think I let it go too much that I crashed it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's like, but I didn't have anything in there other than, just some excess hornwort and guppy grass and just throwing them in there. But it got to the point where it actually, I noticed that when it started heating up, it was doing fine all winter long. And then once the temperature started getting warmer, because I wasn't aerating the tank,
yep.
I think it just got too hot and then it just kind of everything
Just
died.
killed everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's why this one I just left the plants so they were, some were slowly growing, some were dying, and just a couple of catfish in there just to keep everything ticking over. Had a sponge filter in it. Yeah, and just ended up with hundreds there. Didn't have to feed them for the first 3 or 4 weeks. It was so
Yeah.
easy.
What ended up where I ended up having success finally with the angelfish is I was using vinegar eels, and
Yep.
they were working out fine for me because I could put a lot of them in there, and they would survive enough to where by the time I got back from work, because I would feed it right before leaving,
Yep.
and I only work 8 hours a day, so I would once I would come home be able to feed them again, and then
Yep.
before going to bed I would put more in there, and they would survive long enough where the fry would be able to pick at them for most of the day, and
Yeah,
I was able.
that's what baby brine shrimp sort of similar. They last a while.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I don't have a lot of success with the brine shrimp. I don't seem to. I look at some of the people that hatch them out, and it looks like almost like a deep orange of
Hmm.
just brine shrimp. Mine never looked like that. Mine do not look like that. I don't know if it's the quality of eggs that I have,
Oh, do
or
they have
what it
any?
is.
Well, the best way to see is how many unhatched eggs you've got. Or maybe they just overload they put way more eggs in.
That's what I'm thinking because I do it off of the instructions of the container.
Yep.
And I've gone where I try to put more in there, but I guess they must be doing a lot more than what it suggests because my water never looks like. And I look at a lot of other people that are hatching brine shrimp, and they always look like this dark orange maroon cloud of brine shrimp in the water
Yep.
column. I've never had that. I've
Yeah.
never had that. Mine, I mean, and they're there. I can see them swimming, but they look a lot more pale and a lot smaller than what I see on videos too. So I don't know. It might be the eggs that I'm using, but they don't look. I've seen it in videos where you can actually see them swimming in the water like little, well, like a brine shrimp. You know what it looks like.
Yep.
Mine are like little. Either my eyesight's really bad, and all I see is like these little white dots, but they're not nearly as big as what I see on other people's channels. So I don't know. Something I'm definitely not doing something right, whether it's temperature or maybe not enough eggs, or maybe I'm not leaving them in there long enough. I don't know. I haven't figured it out.
What's your pH?
7, like 7.6.
Yeah, but you want to be above 8. Put some bicarb
Oh,
soda in it. You want to be between 8 and 9.
I
Yep.
didn't know that.
So
I didn't
yeah,
know
so
that.
add some bicarb soda. Like work out. See my water here, I think I'm sort of mid sixes, 6.4, 6.5, somewhere around there. and I mix up 2 liters, which is sort of half a gallon, I think, for you guys. And so it's three quarters of a teaspoon of bicarb soda, which brings me up sort of in between 8 and 9. And then it's 4 tablespoons of salt, and I mix up a bottle at a time. But yeah, it's the
Oh,
pH. Try that. Get back to me.
yeah, I will. I'll definitely try it out because
Yep.
that, like I said, this was everybody makes it seems like so easy. Just add salt, water, and brine shrimp, and
Yeah.
you should
No,
be
it's
able
the
to get them.
pH.
And I just don't get that. I don't. I look at mine that hatch out, and they don't look like anything I see on anybody's videos.
Yep.
Um, and they're super tiny. It's kind of even hard to tell that they're brine shrimp in there. But and I've used. It's a very popular brand. It's not the Aquarium Co-op, but it's like the other brand. It's not San Francisco something Bay or something. I don't know. It's they're from Salt Lake City, where all the eggs come from. Here it is. They are what company is this? Hatching instructions. I don't I don't see a name for the brand, but it's the real common one. You can find these on Amazon. So it's a real popular brand. And they just they're supposed to be 80% guaranteed. I guess I should spend a little bit more money and get the 90% ones, and maybe it'll be a different. But I'm gonna definitely try the
Try that
baking soda.
pH. Yep.
Yep.
Well, I've noticed, look, I sort of mucked around with mine, and so now it's pretty much bang on. I have most of them hatch within 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Whereas if it was a little bit
What's your
cooler,
temperature? Are you
yeah,
finding that the temperature matters?
yep, 25, 26
Oh yeah,
Celsius.
it's definitely hotter than that in here.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so when it was a bit cooler, it'd take longer. But
Yeah, because
I give it 24 hours, and then I do mine in an empty soft drink bottle. Mine's very basic. And then so I just pull the air out and then let it settle and then suck it out with a turkey baster. And then I stick my air back in. So I feed that, and then a few hours later, like the rest will hatch.
yeah,
And then I just feed the
I
rest out.
did a DIY hatchery where I
Yep.
drilled a hole in the bottom of the cap, the soda cap, and put a valve in there. So that
Yep.
way when I pull the air out, all the unhatched eggs will float to the top, and then I
Yep.
can just drain it, and I can get nothing but brine shrimp because they'll go to the bottom. I'll put a little light at the bottom
Yep.
to kind of get them to go down. And I know I'm pulling brine shrimp out of there because I can see them moving, but they never look like anything that I see on the videos.
Yep.
And they
Yeah, well,
seem a lot.
yeah, that's how I used to do it. I had valves screwed into lids, and it was just too messy and too hard. And yeah, this way's really simple. So I can do it quick, so I can quickly do it on my way out the door, going to work. But yeah, no, I'll try that pH
Yeah,
because yeah,
yeah. That's the first time I've heard about that being an issue. So I'm glad you pointed that out because now I'll give them a try again. I don't do a lot of brine shrimp just for the fact that you have to you have to set them up one after. You basically need two setups because
yeah,
one of
that's what
them
I do.
is ready to go and the other one is one that you're waiting to hatch.
Yeah,
Um, and unless I have like right now that I'm on my 4 days off, I can be more consistent with it. But when I'm working, especially when I'm working the night shifts, I do nothing but sleep during the day. I'll sleep a few hours in the morning, get up, run some errands, whatever it is that I need to do, and then come back home and sleep again before I go to work. So during that period of time, my fish room really gets neglected because I'm not really
mm,
coming in here other than to feed them and feed them once, and then before I go to work and then take off,
yep,
make sure everything's okay, and then I'm out the door, and
yep.
so
Yeah, well,
I
that's
feed
why
I feed my dog and I feed the fish.
yeah, same here. Yeah, well, that's why I've got mine set up. Like it's really easy. So I'll have two. So I'll have one, whether it be morning or it's afternoon now. So I'll fill one, start it up, and then 24 hours later, you fill the next one, and then you feed out the one you've just done. And then 24 hours later, you're feeding out the next one, and then you fill one. But to fill it, that's why on my days off, I mix up a lot of the water. I have to mix up the salt and the bicarb and have it sitting there in the fish room, so it's already at temperature. So all I've got to do, I just take the dirty one out, rinse it in the sink, tip the eggs in, stick it in, plonk, drop the air in, and walk off. It's like really quick. And yeah, it's a bit of preparation, just makes it
Now,
so much easier.
have you ever played around with the size of the food you feed your fish? Like your fish behind you, do you tend to feed them like a bigger pellet, or do you, or I don't know what you're feeding them, but do you notice that there's a difference on the size of the food that they're consuming? If there's a difference in your fish?
Well, I really like feeding flake because there's a lot of
Okay.
geophagus in here, so they sift through. They can't take a big pellet. And so I used to mix up big pellets when I had the chocolate cichlids and like the bigger stuff in there. But now it's very small sinking pellets, and I like flake because you can throw it in and it'll feed the tetras in there.
Everybody.
It'll feed the sevens. It feeds everybody. And then
Yeah.
so I just walk around with a big container, and then so I can go and feed. I can feed growing out fry. I can just scrunch it up, and then yeah. So just depending on what tank I'm dropping it in, is how much I grind it up. So
Yeah.
if
The
you
reason
find
I
a
was asking
good
is
quality
because,
feed,
I, for the most part, most of my fish are on the smaller side, more like nano fish or like
yep.
live bears, nothing really bigger than a live bear. So most of the pellets that I have that I feed, it's like a 0.5 millimeter or smaller that I have. And I was feeding it to most of the tanks, but I have the one where I have the angelfish. And I also have right now, he's probably about 5 inches. It's a tilapia that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to go out and just buy food to feed that one tilapia. That I started feeding them the same granule pellets that I have. I mean, it's tiny food. It's not very big. It's I don't know if you're going to be, well, you can see it on my fingers.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to feed that in that aquarium. And I sprinkle it in there. And I was thinking, if he really starts struggling where he's not growing, then I'm gonna have to break down and go get a food with more substance, a little bit bigger food. Well, come to find out, this guy is thriving, and these are
Does he pick it up off the gravel, off the sand?
yes, these siphons.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a geophagus.
Yep.
Because he'll go down and he'll scoop it up.
Yep.
And oh, thank you for the super chat. I noticed. Okay, let me see. There's a couple of people. Mark, thank you so much for being a member for 21 months. Cal, thank you so much for the $2.99. And no frills, no mercy. Thank you for the £2. So it's interesting because since I've started doing this, I noticed that it's like, well, it kind of makes sense because I don't know, like us out here in the United States, we tend to really overfeed our fish. And I've heard like from real experienced breeders that they shy away from the big chunky pellets of the Hikari does one that's called like big fellows.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've heard, because if you really want to avoid like blout, you don't want to give them these big pellets, because what happens is once they start absorbing water, they get bigger, and it really starts creating digestive problems. And that's where I had kind of heard that they would rather feed something a little bit smaller, even though they had to feed more. Yep. And but I never really thought how much smaller. I'm just thinking, all right, well, you don't give them the big 3 millimeters or 5 millimeter pellets. Maybe you give them something a little bit smaller. But I'm doing 0.5 to 0.8 millimeters because that feeds my entire fish room. And I wasn't going to go out and do that. And the only thing that I'm doing different in that aquarium is that I'll feed a lot heavier, but he's doing fine. And his colors are striking, and he hasn't had any digestive problems either. So I'm starting to second guess this whole idea of you don't have to feed a big food source as long as there's plenty of that food source. That'll be, oh, here you go. Here's another one that's Stephen P. He says this Congo puffers. He feeds them the little micro pellets, and he
Mhm.
says they really like it. They eat it
Yep.
like whales eat krill.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. And I like to like especially for the geos, I pre-soak it, so I have a little jar and I'll mix up all the food in there and just put the first bit of water in. It helps, and the flake it helps it all sink because they prefer to eat it off the bottom. And yeah, if it's small and breaks up, and if it's everywhere, everyone can get some. But if you're just feeding like 10 big pellets and you got one fish that eats 9 of those big 10 pellets, everyone else misses out. So I just think, yeah, I prefer to do more and smaller.
Yeah. Here you go. Rachel's saying that it all. I guess it has to depend on the. I think what happened with this tilapia that I have in there, I don't think he had a choice. He was going to
Yeah.
starve, or he's going to eat the small pellets. But it's interesting because, like I said, he's not he's growing good. He's in a
Mm.
150, and it's getting to the point now where I really need to figure out what I'm going to do with this fish. It's a fish that I didn't know I was getting. I thought I was getting a free 10-gallon aquarium.
Yeah, and he came with it. Yep.
Yeah, he came with it,
Yeah, I
and it was
saw
like,
that. Yeah.
oh man, he's doesn't go along with anything that I keep. So, and I really didn't want him in that tank. But on the flip side of it, he's kind of growing on me too. I've never kept a bigger fish, and it's always the thing with the bigger fish. They seem to have a. I think it's us that we like to think that they have more of a personality, but I think their interaction is a little bit different. And that's kind of what's happening with this guy here. It's kind of like, oh man, am I really falling for this damn fish that I didn't want? So now it's getting to the point where I got to figure out if I'm going to hang on to him and kind of make him the fish room mascot, or I need to find somebody to take him.
You're gonna need a decent old tank for that one.
Yeah, that's the problem though, and I don't think I have a big enough tank. I mean, it has the water volume, but it's only a 4-footer, and these guys
Mm.
really need a little bit. They need something like a 6 foot or bigger. But it's getting to that point, and it's starting to piss me off because he's trying to dig pits to nest. You know how tilapia are
Yep.
notorious for digging these big old, and it's kind of looking at him, and he's gonna start digging up my plants, and that we're gonna have an issue there.
Yeah, well, I got a couple of Senegal birches that were sort of a rescue. And I thought, oh, look, I'll get them and make sure they're all right, and I'll tee up a pet shop or somewhere, and I'll get rid of them because I didn't want Senegal birches. But yeah. Anyway, so for I'm organising a tank for them, and I'll do an African biotope or something, I think, because they'll never my cup of tea. I thought, oh yeah, they look all right, but yeah, they didn't really do it for me. But now that I've kept them for a while, yeah, they're pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, and that by far is the biggest fish. I never really intended to keep a big fish, but I don't know. I've had him for over a year now, so I think he's kind of become mine.
Hmm.
As long as he doesn't mess around with the, because I have a bunch of angelfish in that tank. Once in a while, I'll see him kind of chase him away from the pit that he has. But
From his pit. Yeah.
other than that, he really doesn't bother him. I mean, he'll come out of there, and when it's time to eat, he doesn't get very territorial, which is interesting. But the angelfish were in there before he was,
Yep.
so I think either that or I'm fooling myself because I think once he gets a little bit bigger, he might
Might get
become like,
hungry.
yeah, or well, not necessarily hungry, but just real territorial, where he's kind of like, all right, you guys got to go.
Yeah, well, I think angelfish are one of the nastiest fish you can keep in the hobby. Because in this tank here, I had an 8-inch chocolate cichlid, and the angelfish used to belt him up, and
Yeah, that's the
they
one
were
on
just
your logo,
constantly
right?
yep, and they
Did you
would
lose
just
him?
yeah, eventually did. I think what happened, he choked on a smaller fish
Oh,
because I came out and I had some small geos growing out in there, and I came out one day and I was missing 3. And then, yeah, poor old Derp. And I found one halfway in. He must have eaten 2, and 3 was just one too many.
yeah, I had a goldfish that tried to. chomped down an albino. That's when I realized that I can't keep Corys with goldfish. I learned the hard way. I came in
Yep.
one day and I thought I had lost him, that goldfish, because I noticed him and I saw something sticking out of his mouth. Well, it was a Cory that was small enough that he was able to, I guess it must have been asleep, and he came in and
Yep.
scooped it up. Well, I guess once the Cory felt that he was in trouble, he extended its fins, and you know how they have the little
Yep.
barbs on them. It impaled the damn goldfish, and I couldn't remove it. And I had to I had to I had to intervene. So I ended up sacrificing the Cory to be able to get it out of its throat. And I really thought that
Yep.
goldfish was done. As a matter of fact, I took him out because I put him back in the aquarium, and he was swimming every which way, and I thought he's not going to make it. So I had a bucket, and I said, you know what? I'm not gonna throw him away, but I'll let him live out. But I don't want him to be in the aquarium, because if he passes overnight, I don't want him fouling up the entire aquarium. So I pulled him out, put him in a bucket. Ended up going to work that morning. Came back late, forgot about him, and it was like 2 or 3 days later that I went back and I looked in the bucket. In that bucket, I was throwing in extra hornwort, not a lot, but I had some in there and stuff. And I came back and I was thinking, all right, this guy's gonna be dead. I for sure thought he was gonna be dead. Man, that sucker was aliver than I've ever seen him before.
Yeah.
And I took him out of there, put him back in the main group, and he did fine. I mean, he went on to live, several years more until I got rid of him. I ended up taking him to a friend with the pond because I wanted to break down that aquarium. That goldfish, I made the mistake of taking my grandkids to the store, and they picked out fish, and the oldest one picked out a goldfish. So all other three, I have 4 grandkids. The rest of the 3 picked out goldfish too. So that ended up that was another fish that I wasn't planning on keeping. And because I thought, I don't want to keep goldfish. Everybody has goldfish. And almost immediately, once I got rid of them, I had that remorse. So now this aquarium up here has a couple of more goldfish and a couple of fancy tails. And even it's getting to the point now where I got to get them into their bigger aquarium. So, but it was funny that I'd never wanted them. I got them because of my grandkids, and they ended up being mine. But it got to the point where I had to get them to a bigger aquarium. So I had a friend of mine that has a pond, and he said, "Yeah, I'll take them." He wanted them for his outdoor pond, so that's where they're at now.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. You think, oh, I don't want that, till you have it for a while, and then you can't imagine not having them.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think a lot of it was when I started doing content, you fall into that trap where at least I did, where it's like, oh, I want to do something different. It's kind of like I want to keep this or that, and that was the reason why I didn't want to keep any goldfish. It was like, goldfish, that's like very basic beginner, not.
Yep.
And I never understood the appeal for them, but once I was kind of keeping them, I really enjoyed them. What they were my workhorses. And the reason I say that is because a lot of my aquariums have duckweed, and they used to be my duckweed disposal team. I never fed them anything other than duckweed, and I never had any intestinal problems. None of these other issues that a lot of people encounter with goldfish. Especially, I used to hear, "Oh, you never want them gulping up at the top because that makes them ingest air." But I think there's a misunderstanding with that. I think it's more of the food that they're ingesting that is creating them to have bloat. It's got nothing to do with them eating at the surface. I think it's true that they're ingesting air and that's causing them to have swim bladder issues, because where the duckweed floats at the top of the surface, and that's all they were eating. And of course they're gulping at the surface. And I've never, ever, they were the healthiest, if you go look back at my videos, them suckers are big and they're happy. And I never had a problem with digestion with those guys. I think
a lot of it is when you feed goldfish flake, they tend to get more constipated, and I don't know why. You can feed them pellets and they won't, but feed them flake and they do. Whether it's the goldfish flake they produce is too much of something in it, I don't know. But yeah, but if you can feed them greens, that's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, so that's all they ate was duckweed, and it
Yep.
got almost to a point where I was starting to get worried because they were eating so much of. I could put the entire top of that aquarium. They were in a 60-gallon that I hadn't set up yet, and I could probably put about a half-inch thick of just duckweed on the surface, where I would just scoop it out of all my aquariums, and come back from work, and more than half of it would be gone because they were just all the time we're eating. I would find these big old noodles, green noodles in the
bright green
aquarium. Oh yeah, bright, and you can see them. They're eating and coming out the other end. It's all processed.
Yep.
So I had to do almost water changes almost every 3 days on that aquarium because they were just putting out so much waste.
Yep.
And which was interesting, but I never had any issues with them. The typical stuff you hear with people with goldfish that they get blood or swim bladder issues.
Mm-hmm.
None of those issues. I was very fortunate that was not an issue, but I think a lot of it was because almost 99% of their diet was green matter, and I think they're kind of designed to eat vegetation in the first place, so it was like normal for them. So
exactly, yeah, they generally eat algae and pieces of plant and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I've got my that aquarium with the beer bottles on it. It's got some big leopard cactus plecos in it, and they belong to a mate. He said, "Oh, can you look after these for a couple of weeks?" Because he was moving, and like that was months ago, and they're one of my favourite fish now. I thought, oh yeah, look, they're cool, they're all right, but you don't see them, and for the price you pay, they're worth an arm and a leg here. I thought, oh boy, I'll look after them for you. That's why that tank's just temporary. And then now there's a couple of them that come out every time I walk past because they know they're going to get fed.
So what's going to happen once the owner comes saying, "All right, I'm ready to take them back"? Are you going to replace them? And
I just won't let him on the place. Nah, they're mine now.
They're yours now, huh?
Yeah. I don't know. He might. Yeah, he hasn't got any plans. Doesn't know what he's doing yet. He's moving around a bit. So yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it sucks when you get attached to fish, especially when they're not yours. That's got to be the hardest.
Yep.
And it's always the fish you don't expect to get attached to either. It's kind of like, I don't like them, and then before you know it, it's kind of like, I don't want to get rid of it.
Exactly. I thought, look, they're pretty. They're something a little bit different, but they don't do anything. It's not like, I love the earth eaters because they're always doing something. There's always something interesting to watch. Whereas these things, you might see them shoot out a little bit, grab a bit of food at night time, but now they're out a lot, and it's cool. And there's 5 in there, and you'd always see 1 or 2, and then for a long time I was getting really excited. You'd see 4, and I thought, one of them must be dead. And then now you'll see 5. I thought, it's so cool. Yeah, and they come out and they really, it's a completely different tank when they're all out because there's heaps and heaps of tetras in there. But when these big catfish come out and everything gets out of the way, and these guys, where's the food? It's very cool. And I never imagined that I'd want to keep big plecos. They're not. It was never my thing. But now, I'll be devastated when they go.
Yeah, I was watching a video. Fathom Aquatics had done a fish room tour of this really prolific breeder up in the Georgia area. And I guess he was talking about it wasn't on, I don't think it was on Alex's video. It was on another guy that had done the same fish room tour. And he was the breeder, his name's Mitchell, was talking about at the beginning before he started getting into cories. So they asked him, "Why are you so much into cories?" He goes, "Cories are always out." He goes, "I started out breeding like fancy plecos, and what I can tell you about fancy plecos is that they have nice tails. And that's because that's the only thing you ever see from those fish. It's just
Yep.
that tail sticking out.
Yep.
He goes, I went from just, yeah, they're cool and all that, but I only ever got to see the tails. That's why he switched over to breeding Corys, because the Corys
Yeah,
are
but
out more often.
then the other side of that, there's two king tiger plecos in here, and one of them Terry. Well, we got Terry, and he was less than half an inch. He was tiny, and so we grew him out till he got to an inch and a bit, and then he went in there. And there's many times I've just thought, well, Terry must have died sometime in the last 4 or 5 months because I haven't seen him for a while. And then one day they'll come out, and it's an occasion. It's the kids will, oh, Dad, Terry's out. So we all rush over and say good day to Terry, and you're not going to get that with a fish that comes out all the time. It's like Halley's Comet. We all go and have a look because we don't know if we're ever going to see it again.
I have a clown pleco, and that's the very first pleco I've ever got, and I've had that aquarium now. It's got 3 years, at least minimum 6 years since I set up that aquarium, and every so often I think, oh, that clownfish is gone. I don't think it's around, and I'll be surprised when I least expect it. He'll be out. It's like, oh, he's still in there, because I don't, like I said, I don't stick my hands that much. I don't rearrange decorations or anything. So he's obviously got a spot where he likes to go hang out. But every so often, just when I start thinking, oh, he's probably died, he comes out and kind of like, no, I'm still here, bud. I'll see you later. It'll be another few months before you see me again.
Yeah, well, I've got an 8 or 9 inch common bristlenose in there named Chill. My daughter named him Chill. And every time he'd always come out at food time, and you'd see him around occasionally, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. And I thought, oh, maybe old Chill, he might have moved on. But no, he was out the other day. I thought, oh my God, Chill's he's still alive.
Yeah, he's one of the ones that will surprise me once in a while that I just forget. I have some albino longfin plecos in there, some ancestris, the bristlenose, and those guys are always out. But that little clown pleco, and then he's small. He didn't get very big either, so they don't get very big.
Yep.
So for the longest time, I just don't think I've seen him. And then every so often, I haven't seen him in a while now, but I'm pretty sure now that I've said that I haven't seen him in a while, he'll end up popping up one of these days. Plus, they tend to come out more at night when the fish room's dark. They'll. I noticed that. I also had some coolie loaches that I had bought a group of. I think it was like 6 of them, and I would always only see one of them, and I would notice him more when I would do water changes. He'd come up to one of the corners and do circles.
Yep.
And that's the only time I would see him. And I thought, okay, the other ones must have passed. And as a matter of fact, I had him with a colony of bristlenose that I was breeding. And I guess the oldest bristlenose that was in there ended up, I guess, passing. And I didn't catch it because the way I had set up that tank, I set up the caves where I couldn't see him, what was in them. So he must have died, or one of the plecos must have died in there. And I didn't catch it, and it spiked the water, and it killed off almost all the plecos I had in there, because it was I must have had at least 30 of them in there. And I came in one day, like 2 days went by where I hadn't come into the fish room. I came in and I noticed that tank. There was just carcasses everywhere. And I thought, oh man, I thought that tank was done. So I broke it down, took everything out, and I'm starting to move, because I had a bunch of driftwood in there for those ancestors that were in there, and I started taking it all out. I was going to reset it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Well, I started moving all the decorations, and before I noticed, those guys were in there. They were struggling. They weren't doing very good. They had like a ammonia burns on them, I guess, because they were looking terrible. And I thought, oh wow, these guys are not going to make it. Took them all out. Took all that stuff out, did a couple of water changes, and then I was doing like every other day. I was doing a water change, partial water change. Well, coming to find out, those guys are pretty sturdy because they made it through. And I had, out of the 6, I think I still have 5 of them that are in there.
Yep.
And now,
Yep.
now it's become like a swordtail tank. And periodically when I feed, I'll see them come out. But for
Yep.
the most part, I set up some rock piles for them so they can go out and hide out. And I'm hoping that I can get them to breed. And if they do that, then I'll have some more. But yeah, that's again going back to the giving fish a little bit more credit than we do, because they're scaleless. You would everything I've heard is fish that don't have scales are a lot more delicate, and I know I definitely had a pneumonia spike in there because it killed off a bunch of those ancestors, and for them to make it through that and not only make it, but now they're like nothing ever happened to them. They're fine.
That's pretty good.
I was like, wow, these guys are a lot more sturdier than we think. And I had heard I think it was KG Tropicals. I think it was them, where they were talking about them breaking down an aquarium where they had some coolie loaches in there, and they left, I guess, the tank with just a few inches of water in it, and it sat in the garage for several months. They had almost forgotten about that aquarium. They came back after several months and were decided to do something with it. And when they were, I guess, getting ready to start it up, that the coolie loach was in there, and they were wondering, they knew how long that tank had been broken down and had just totally been neglected. Didn't feed it, didn't do anything to it, and lo and behold, those guys were still in there. At least one of them. I think it was one that they said that they were totally shocked that it had survived. It says at least one or two of my coolies were always out. The rest would be crammed themselves inside into a nook. Yeah.
Well, I've got some black coolies.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Always out. Yeah, well, they're always out and 1,000 miles an hour. Whereas I've got striped coolies, and they come out at feed time and they cruise around very slow and they're nice. But these black things are like they're on speed or something. They're just 100 mile an hour, and then they stop, then they take off again.
They're interesting to watch. I like them. I didn't think they were going to become a fish that I would thoroughly enjoy. It's out right now, as a matter of fact. And but I noticed that they're out more at night when I only have an ambient light that I keep in the fish room. Yep. It's a little desk lamp, and it lights up enough where I can come in here and I'll sit down, and I like watching my aquariums when the lights are out because fish will act different too. You get the ones that are that are more active at night, and that's when you really get to see them. But and I noticed those coolie loaches are a lot more active at night than they are during the day.
Yeah, mine are just flat out anytime. They're just anytime you walk past the tank, they just buzz around, and yeah, too busy for me. I like the striped ones better.
All right. Well, Gil, we're coming up on 2 hours. It's already going to be 1 o'clock over here. I just want to thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you. I've had a ball.
I was really looking forward to being able to talk to you, especially because you and I have messed around with them plenums and the BCB baskets, and it was nice to find out your take on them and what kind of success you had with them. But with that being said, thank you I have 16 people that are out here, and it's 4 a.m. Yeah. That are still up. I mean, especially for a weekday, it's not uncommon to come across people on the weekends, but on a weeknight, I really appreciate you guys coming out and watching it. Thank you for joining us. I've always done these with the intention anyways that a lot of people will watch them in the replay. That's why when we set this up, my whole idea is that I know a lot of people will come back and rewatch it because it was so late. But I know I was really happy to see a lot of the people that are outside of the United States that are watching this, like No Frills, that's from Scotland, Don, that's in the UK, Mal, Steve is
Kel from Australia.
Yeah. Oh, Cal. He's a new one. He's probably one of your followers, right?
Yeah, he's a guy I know. He lives in town.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
yeah, I appreciate it, Cal, for coming out and supporting not only me, but also Gil and Mickham. I think Mickham is also somewhere in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it, especially my my U.S. people that are. I know it's 1 o'clock for me. It's much later for everybody else, depending on how far east you go. But with that being said, thank you guys. If you're not subscribed to Hit Gil, go check them out. I'm positive you're not going to regret it. Like I said, it's one of those channels that has that perfect balance of humor and education. So if you haven't seen it, go check them out. And anything else you want? Oh, besides YouTube, what other social medias can people follow you on? And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I've got an email address on the YouTube if you got any questions or anything. And one of the kids set me up on the Facebook now, so I'm on the Facebook. Just Gil's Fish Room.
He says, "How can I not subscribe?" When he looks at your T-shirt.
Yep. This T-shirt, every time I wear it in town. I've got to fight the ladies off with a stick. They all love it.
Well, thank you guys. I again greatly appreciate you guys' constant support, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. You guys take care.
All right. Bye, everyone.